What's up everyone, Michael Spirit Shard here with an impressions review for Recursion Deluxe, a simple little puzzle platformer that introduces some mechanics that I've seen before, but the way that they've introduced them and the way they've kind of mixed all the mechanics that they have together is actually done quite well. I'm quite enjoying this one so far, but we're going to end up checking it out and see if you might find it entertaining as well. Anyways, we're going to start with the settings real quick because there's not many of them. You got full screen, music, and sound, so you can customize your audio how you like, but I would like to see some windowed options. As in, the game, when it's in windowed mode, you can actually just drag the corner of the window and it'll adjust to whatever you need it, and it'll keep aspect ratio and stuff like that. So that's awesome. But I would like to see the, resolution options as well in here. I would also like to see maybe some more widescreen support. As you'll notice, the aspect ratio has these black bars or whatever I decide to put in them. And so I would like to see maybe a widescreen support. Now, there is a reason for that. The game is actually a static screen platformer, and so we'll see that once we get into game. It'll make sense, but it would be nice if they put like an image or something like that on the sides of the bars, and I'll do that for the video. I'll probably put the logo or something there. Anyway, so let's go ahead and play the game. So you get two characters. You can pick Paul or Sarah. Paul is lame, so I'm going to pick Sarah. And then you get your world select. Now, as a value proposition, you're going to want to look at this real quick because these levels are actually fairly short. Now, I did say it's a static screen platformer. Now, if you played the old school puzzle platformers, you probably know exactly what I mean. But if you haven't, that basically means you're on one screen for each level. Now, this game introduces doors, which allow you to go into other screens and stuff like that, so it's a little bit more complex than that. But you only have 4 worlds by default. Now, there is a level creator, and the game is supposedly expandable, so there could be more content in the future. If you can find a community that's making levels, maybe you can find a bunch of levels and stuff like that. So technically, with the level creator, there is infinite levels, but I'm going to be judging my opinions off of these 4 base levels, because this is what the creator has made and released. So if you can find a community for other levels, though, that might be something to look at. But otherwise, we're going to go ahead and pick level 9 real quick so I can show the basic mechanics. Now, like I said, you could use WASD and spacebar if you wish, but I'm going to be using the arrow keys and Z and X. Anyways, you got your character. You can move left and right. You got those stars you can collect. Now, where are the introducing the interesting mechanics? Well, we can move left and right and jump like a normal platformer. You can also hit X and make your character explode and reset the level, which is quite nice that it has a thing for that. You can also hit escape and go retry if you want to do that as well, if for some reason you don't want to hit an extra key. Anyways, the introducing mechanics actually come into play when you're able to go through the screen. So I can walk through the side of the screen and appear on the other side. Now, this is why it is a static screen platformer. And you can also go through the bottom of the screen, so there is no falling to your death unless you fall into spikes, and then you're just dead. And you can also adjust the gravity. And then you collect keys, get the doors, and this is where it kind of gets into that standard platformer type stuff. There's platforms that'll explode, and there's enemies that wander around that will kill you. There's bubbles you can jump on and they pop, and there's balloons and things like that. And there's a bunch of little simple mechanics that kind of go into the puzzle sort of aspect. Now, I am kind of putting emphasis on the puzzle aspect because this isn't necessarily just a platformer. It is a platformer, as in you're jumping around and jumping on platforms and completing levels. But here's the doors I was talking about. Now, this one only just brings us to another spot of the level, but there are ones that actually bring you to another complete screen. We'll probably see that in one of the levels that I picked. Oops, I died there. That was unfortunate. Regardless, I am putting an aspect onto, or emphasis on the aspect of it being a puzzle platform because the game focuses a lot more on its puzzles, as in a lot of the levels are not going to be technically platforming challenges. The platforming in this game can only be so complex. As in, if you're able to jump left and right, you'll probably be able to play this game quite effectively. However, it's a lot of the thinking that goes into this game of how am I supposed to complete this level. Now, these are the very early levels, and I should probably stop playing these so I don't show you all of them because they're fairly short, as you can see. That's about the length of the levels for most of the game. Now, if I go back into one of these later levels, here's one with one of the doors and the little bubbles I was talking about that you can jump on. Yay! Anyways, as I was saying, there's going to be a lot of things to where in the game to where it actually focuses on how am I supposed to do this, what order am I supposed to go in. I actually screwed up this part of the level. Whoopsie! I'm going to restart. But there's going to be a lot of things to where it focuses on how am I supposed to complete this, as in what order am I supposed to do, how am I supposed to jump on those bubbles. Like, if I reset here, I actually had to figure out what timing to do that, because if you jump too early, you'll just fall and get killed by bees. If you jump too late, then you just won't be able to jump up there properly. So I could probably get there from that. Nope. There is a way you can actually jump up as well to where, you can get from the bottom. That's how you get those stars on there. There are stars as collectibles as well, so if you want to go through every level and get all the stars, you can do that as well. There's also a score system, and it keeps track of your timer as well. Regardless, as I was saying though, it focuses a lot more on the puzzle elements, and that's actually where I think the strong point of this game is. Now, that's not to say that the platforming is bad. The platforming is actually fairly polished, as in it feels like a really good platform. When I hit left, it goes left. When I hit right, it goes right. It feels like it should, in my opinion. There we go, we swapped it. Now I believe I jump on the balloons. That, oh, I screwed that one up. But the platforming feels very, very solid. You know, it's very responsive and very, very quick to react. And that's kind of the mechanics in a nutshell. Now, obviously, there's a lot of other puzzles and things like that that I can talk about and stuff like that. Now, I'm going to just kind of jump from level to level from now on and just kind of like show a bunch of different stuff. And hopefully that appeals to you guys. But regardless, let's go ahead and move on to other topics. So what are the goals of each level? I forgot to mention that. Your goal of the level is to actually get to that flagpole. So just so that you know, I think it was quite obvious by my gameplay, but maybe not. Maybe you guys didn't pay attention that much, and I just got killed because that block appeared on top of my face. Anyway, so let's talk about graphics and sound design. Now, graphics-wise, this is going to be extremely subjective. Now, I personally, I think it's nice. It's nothing mind-blowing. It's not going to be like, oh my god, this looks amazing or anything like that. It has a retro feel to it, but I feel like it uses it to its advantage, as in, the gameplay is sort of simple. The mechanics are, while complex in their kind of perception, they're fairly simple as well, as in it's like, it's not something like, I don't even know what to compare it to, but it's not going to be something that's going to blow your mind and just be like absolutely amazing, unless you've never seen something like this, and then I guess it would. There have been other games with these mechanics before, so it's not like it's 100% original, but the way that it's done is actually quite well, and I like the levels that they've created here. And they do a lot of interesting things with like these bubbles, to where if I get hit by a bubble, you know, it's going to kill me on those spikes while I'm waiting for this. If I get stuck in here, it's going to kill me because of that. And it's like, it's just interesting. And the game is actually fairly polished. And I feel like that goes towards the graphics as well. While they're not complex, they feel polished to a point to where they're enjoyable. And I probably should have waited longer. Anyways, go ahead and pick a different level. We'll go into some of the later levels. Go to level 7. Oh, this one's fun. I like this one. Like I was saying with the mechanics, they actually do some interesting things. The sound design, for me, is maybe lesser so than the graphics, as in I feel like the graphics are perfectly what they should be. Obviously, that's going to be subjective. For the sound design, I feel like there's a few sound effects that maybe aren't up to par. Some of them sound weird. Like when you die, I don't necessarily like the death sound. It just sounds weird, but collecting the stars and everything else is nice. The music is passable as well. It's nothing, you know, spectacular, and that's pretty much going to be my conclusion on this game as well. It's like, the music is good, and it's passable for what it is, but it's also not something that I would listen to on my free time, so it's not necessarily an amazing soundtrack. But it is good regardless. Like, it's not bad. And that's probably what I have to say about this game. Now, before I continue on to my conclusion, which I was kind of trying to get into there, I kind of want to talk a little bit about performance, because this game, I believe it runs in Flash. The level creator actually requires Adobe Air to be installed, and I actually haven't been able to try the level creator because of that, because my system actually doesn't run well with that in mind. I forgot what exactly it was, but something about Creative Cloud, which is what I use to make videos, doesn't allow the version of Adobe Air, the current Adobe Air, to actually run. So yeah, I haven't actually been able to try that, but hopefully that is in it. But one of the major issues that I have with the performance is that when you go through doors, there is a slight second to where it's switching screens, to where it's like 3 frames of black. Now in that 3 frames of black, you can actually get killed by enemies and stuff like that. So like, you saw a little bit there to where I went through the door and got killed by that zombie. Now, technically that's my fault, because I should have moved the zombie so he wasn't in that space. But regardless, that's kind of one thing that I would mention about the performance of the game. If that delay wasn't there, maybe I would be able to save myself. Maybe it was just there when I was going through the screen, which I guess would be a gameplay complaint. And then also the game has a memory leak, which is a little bit strange. So if the game's running for more than about 20 minutes, the memory actually gets quite ridiculous. If you're going through the levels very, very quickly, your memory usage will actually go up quite ridiculously. And I got it all the way up to using 4 gigs when I just had it idle, sitting there just on my computer, because I do that a lot. I shouldn't, but I do. And so that is one thing to keep in mind. So if you're playing for too long at once, then you might want to restart your game. Luckily, the game loads extremely quick. It's very, very fast. And when you first start the game, until that memory leak comes into play, it performs really, really well. I haven't noticed any stuttering. The frame rate seems fine. The game doesn't really have too many bugs. There's been a few things here and there to where it's like, oh, well, that was kind of strange. Like, if you switch the gravity and then go back to the main menu, which I can actually do that here. So if I go back to the main menu, it'll actually flip gravity while I'm in here, and it just killed the zombie. That's kind of a weird glitch. And then I just killed the characters, and then it goes back into the level that I was on. That's a weird bug, and I don't know what that is, but it's also not something that's necessarily going to affect your experience all too much. It's just something that's going to happen, and you're just kind of like, oh, that was weird, and then move on from it. So that's kind of the game in a nutshell, and there isn't too much content, so I'm trying not to show too many levels here. But what's my conclusion on this game? Well, I like it, as in it's actually done extremely well. I like the polish that it has to it, and I really feel like they did a lot of interesting things with the mechanics within their set levels. And I believe people that go into, you know, creating levels or playing player-created levels can actually see some really cool ideas with these mechanics, because the mechanics are so expandable, and they're mechanics that can be done really, really well. That doesn't mean that the gameplay has a very high skill cap, though. So if you're looking for a, you know, really difficult kind of platform or anything like that, this isn't going to be the experience you're looking for. This is going to be more of a casual experience to where it's like more about the puzzles rather than the platforming thing, which I actually like. There's not a lot of puzzle platformers that actually release these days that are actually good. There's a lot of bad ones, but we don't talk about those ones. And this one is actually really, really good. And so I strongly recommend it for people who like puzzle platformers. That said, though, there isn't a lot of content, so your value proposition may be kind of skewed depending on if you can find that community-made content. Now, it's not expensive, and so it's not an expensive experience where you're like, oh, well, this is going to cost me so much money. It's like $5 or something like that, so it's really not that much. So if you're looking for a good experience, then maybe this is it, but it's not going to appeal to everyone, especially if you don't like puzzle platformers, and it's definitely not worth the price tag. But for people who do like puzzle platformers, such as myself, then this is definitely a good experience, and it's been really fun. And there's a few levels that have actually stumped me for a while. The game hasn't really challenged me, per se, but there's been a few points where I actually have to stop and think, because there's certain orders where you have to grab keys in some levels. This is an example. It does take a while to ramp up, and so it's into the later levels, which I wish that the game did ramp up quicker, which is probably going to be where the user-created levels come in once again. But it's had me stop and think every once in a while, which is quite an achievement for a puzzle platformer. Anyways, this has been Michael, aka Spirit Shard, with Recursion Deluxe, a fairly decent platformer that I've actually enjoyed quite a bit. I wish more people would release, you know, simple platformers and stuff like that. I know there's a ton of them out there, but, you know, a lot of them don't go to the extent of this one and actually have a polished experience that's enjoyable. And this one has an aesthetic to it to where it's just cute and playful, and it's just fun to play in a sense, which is a little bit strange. I mean, games are supposed to be fun to play, and I just screwed that up. That was sad. But it has a nice little aesthetic to it and stuff like that, and it just feels polished. And it's not that bad. Anyways, thanks for watching. As always, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And I just jumped through there instead of grabbing the key. That was disappointment. I didn't even realize I could do that. Little things that matter. Anyways, make sure to leave in the comments what you think of this game. You know, do you think that it's going to be worth the purchase? Do you think it maybe not? Maybe you played it, or maybe you watched the development. Apparently, this was a small prototype game that the developer was working on, and then they ended up expanding it, which is quite an interesting story. I like hearing about those types of stories where, like, yeah, I have this little prototype, and it's kind of a cool idea. I don't know if it'll work, but we're going to try it regardless, and you made a fairly successful product with it, and it's enjoyable. I probably didn't want to go down here, did I? Oh, no, I did. Oh, B. Dang it. It's hard for me to look on both sides of the screens. Anyways, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.